We're going to start on Kuf Yud Aleph, 111 on the top. Do you see that? Tanur Rabbanan? Second line on the top. Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to every day. It's supposed to be our learning. Should have Beis Hamikdash immediately. Okay. So to learn this Gemara, we had a Gemara before on 110b towards the bottom. There was also a Tanur Rabbanan, and over there we said that if someone pours water outside the Beis Hamikdash, he's going to be chayiv. And Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon said that it depends if it was filled for the sake of the holiday. We asked what's the machlekes there, and we gave some discussion. Tanur Rabbanan. Then we start over here. Almost the same brisa, except this is wine. The last one that we learned was water. Someone pours 3 lug of wine, which is what was done for a sacrifice in the temple. He pours it outside the temple, which was a prohibition of offering a sacrifice outside the temple. 3 lug was the minimum, right? So the Tanakama says chayiv. Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon, Aimer v'husha kitchen b'keli. Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon says, but it had to have gone into a keli, which is a kli sharis, a service vessel, and then it'd be chayiv. My beinayu. What's the difference between the first opinion and the Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon? This is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's son. Amar Rabbi Ada bar Rabbi Yitzchak birutei midas ikabinayu. What Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon is saying is that it had to have gone into the vessel. Tanakama holds that even what's in there's a surface tension, there's a meniscus that goes over the top of the kiddush cup, like every cup. Fill that up. So the Tanakam would hold that Yechayev for that as well. As if that would be that would create the shear. I guess even though it was never inside the vessel, that would satisfy being in the vessel. And Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon is being very specific that it had to have gone into the vessel also. Yeah. Okay, that's the first answer. Rabba Brei the Rava. There's two versions of this. There's one is Rabba Brei the Rabba, and then the other version is Rabba Brei the Rava. Rashi's version is Rabba Brei the Rava. Okay, the opposite of what's in our text. So he says that the machlekes between the Tanakam and Rabbi Elazar is karvu nesachim bebama ikabenayu beplukta dahani tanai. This goes back to something that we mentioned before as well. Were the libations practiced on a bama? Because when the Torah talks about when you come into the land of Israel, you'll offer libations together with each sacrifice. After the spies in Parsha Shlach, the Torah says that when you come into the land, the Vayachem al Aretz or something, when you come into the land, I'll read it to you. Come into the land. Uh, 1520? No. Yeah, that could be. Yeah. Meal offerings, wine libations accompany the sacrifice. It says, Ki savayo al eretz meishveiseichem asher and yinaisin lechem. It says, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you arrive in the land of your residence, which I am giving you, and you make a voluntary fire offering to God and make a pleasant aroma for God, be it a burnt offering, a peace offering, or a voluntary offering of your festivals from cattle or sheep. If a person brings his offering of a lamb, he should present a meal offering 1/10 of an ephah mixed with a 1/4 hin of oil. with a quarter hin of wine as a libation. So apparently this halacha is only when you enter into the land. What does it mean when you enter into the land? Does it mean that only after the Beis Hamikdash is set up, or after the Mishkan is set up, or does it mean even on a bama? So the basis of to answer that question is going to be, well, what was going on before they came into the land? Did they have to bring libations already beforehand? And if that's the case, then what does it mean when you enter into the land? Coming to tell me that before when they were in the desert, were they pouring nesachim if they brought a sacrifice? What do we say by the carbon tamid? We say, Elas tamid hasiya bahar Sinai. It means we brought it by Har Sinai. So they're pouring wine already in the desert. So what do you mean they're pouring wine in the desert? That means that it's not b'vayachem aletz. It's not when they come into the land. They were doing it beforehand. So what does it mean when you come into the land? Come into the land must be coming to tell me that even if it's a regular bama, not a bama tzibur. Bama tzibur means like the Mishkan, the community bama. No, even on a now it's coming to tell me that you do it even on a private. You do it on a private one. That means that you don't need a keli. You don't need a klisharis. So there's a lot of layers to this machlekes. What is bevayach malaris? What was going on in the desert? Do you need a klisharis? And everything is dependent one on the other. So he says like this. The basis of this is, did they bring the libations on a bama siyachid? And if that's the case, then you don't need a klisharis. That would be the difference. But plukta dani tanai in the machlekes is with the following tanaim. In other words, the machlekes, the Tanakama in Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon is actually a different machlekes. It's based on a different machlekes. The Tanya was started in a brayso b'mas yachid ein tzrichin nesachim. A private altar, right? An altar of an individual does not require libations. The very Rebbe v'chamer mtunin nesachim. I'm saying it does require the libations on the private altar. Hani tanai kani tanai. Now the machlekes Rebbe and the Chachamim is based on another machlekes. Follow? Now we're on our third ketanai. This we don't have so often. Usually we have like a lema ketanai, right? This machlekes exists somewhere else, and now we have this machlekes exists somewhere else, and the machlekes that exists somewhere else is based on a machlekes that exists somewhere else. It could go even one step further. Yeah. The Tanya was started in a brayso, but Masechet Zavachim Daf Rebbe Chamem Tunisachim. Hani Tanai Kani tonight. The Tanya was started in a brayso. Kisavayu, when you will come into the land. Actually, it says when you come into the land of your inheritance. Why does it say Kisavayu? Latina Nesachim Bebama Gedayla Kasav Medaber. It's coming to tell me that when you're going to use the altar, you're going to have to bring libations. Ata imer bebama gedayla. You say that it's only on the large altar, which means like the altar of the Mishkan. Maybe not. Maybe it even means when you come into the land, it's coming to tell me, even if it's a bama katana, even if it's a private altar, you're going to have to bring the libations. So kishuaimer, when the pasuk says al eretz ma'ishvei seichem, land of your inheritance, asher ani naisen lachem, that I give to you, it says it in a plural, ma'ishvei seichem, asher ani naisen lachem, right? Lachem, all of those are plural use, like the old English you, plural, as opposed to thou. So hare b'bama nehegas l'kolchem akasim medaber. It's talking about a bama gedayla, which means on a bama katana you do not need to have libations. Now, if that's the case, you don't need to have libations. So then you don't need to have a vessel. You don't need to have a vessel. Then it's not significant if it was in the vessel or not in the vessel, right? So the machlekes Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon would be that Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon holds that it needs to be in the vessel, which means that it needs to be. He would hold like the Rabbi Shmuel. He would hold like Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel holds that they only brought the libations on the Bama Gedola, on the Mishkan. They didn't bring the libations on the private altars. Rabbi Akiva, he argues. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva Aimer Kisavaya, when it says, when you'll come into the land, Latina Nesachem Bebama Katana Kasav Medaber. Pasuk's coming to teach me that you have to bring the libations even on private altars. So Ata Aimer Lebama Katana, Yen Lebama Gedola, you say that it's only on private, that it's even on private altars. Maybe it's only on the public altar. So Kishuayim Eretz Meshvei Seichem, when it says the land of your inheritance, it means everywhere. Meshvei Seichem, according to Rabbi Akiva, is not coming to tell me the plural, that it's only the public. It's coming to tell me every private altar. If you look at this carefully, you're going to see Divrei Rabbi Shmuel cover nesachem b'midbar. Divrei Rabbi Akiva cover nesachem b'midbar. According to Rabbi Shmuel, that he learns that you don't have to bring it on private altars, right? You don't bring nesachem on private altars. Then, what was going on in the desert? They were not bringing nesachem, and so the law was, when you come into the land, you'll bring nesachem. According to Rabbi Akiva, that says that in the desert they were bringing nesachim already. So then, what would the pasuk be teaching me? When you come into land, we're already bringing it. Must be teaching me that you even bring it on private altars. Yeah. According to Rabbi Shmuel, the law is telling me just the fact that you bring it at all. And where do you bring it on the public altar? Because we weren't doing this in the desert.
Is it going to discuss what else could be done on the private altar? Or is this the other way of asking? Is this the only thing that could be brought on the private altar?
No, that's going to be discussed. That is discussed in different places. Here we were just getting into the libation of offering a libation outside the temple.
Right.
Would you be chayiv? Once the temple is built, would you be chayiv? And the question is, did it need to be placed inside a holy vessel in order to be chayiv? Now, that's dependent on if they were bringing it in the desert. If they were bringing it in the desert, then when the Torah tells me when you come into the land, then you're going to be chayiv. That means it's coming to tell me even if you're using a private altar. So if you have to bring it even on a private altar, that would mean when private altars were allowed. That is, when private altars were allowed, you'd have to bring it. That would mean that you did not need to use a holy vessel to bring it. That would mean now that if you bring it outside the temple, then even if you brought it without a holy vessel, you'd still be chayav. That would be the opinion of the Tanna Kama. Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, he would say that they did not bring it in the desert, like Rabbi Shmuel. Therefore, when the Torah says you have to bring it, that means it's only on the public altar. Only on the public altars means that you only with a holy vessel. It means okay. It means if you bring it outside without a holy vessel, then you'd be exempt because it's not counted. What does he ignore? Who? Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon? What does he ignore?
Because they used, like the second mention, because like the extra.
No, he's following Rabbi Shmuel instead of Rabbi Akiva, right?
Isn't bringing the nusa, whether it's yayin or mayim, a deraisa?
Yeah.
So this is positing that the Rabbanim suspended that obligation, at least some hold. They suspended the obligation while they were sometime.
It's a machlekes when it applies. It's a deraisa. The question is when does it apply? In the words of the pasuk, Daber al bnei Yisrael matlam ki savei al eretz meshvei seichem, Does that mean on a bama gedayla, or does that mean on a bama ketana? That's a machlekes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. The basis for that machlekes is what were they doing beforehand? Were they anyways bringing it? So what does it mean? According to Rabbi Akiva, it's coming to tell me, oh, now you have to do it on a bama ketana. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it's coming to tell me, no, now you have to do it on a bama gedayla. In the desert, we didn't do it on a bama gedayla.
There was not a Bama Gedola in the Midbar?
Oh, there was only a bama gedayla in the midbar. There was no bama ketana. There were no private altars in the desert. Only when they came into the land of Israel did they have private altars. In the desert, they had the Mishkan, which we call a bama gedayla.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All good? Nehemiah Eimer. Nehemiah says, Yori Adam Shekrivan Bachutz is Chayiv. This is what we learned in the Mishnah. We had an opinion in the Mishnah that the remnant of the blood that was brought outside is going to be Chayiv. Rabbi Yochanan explains this opinion. Tana Reb Nehemiah Kedivri Eimer Shirai Makvin. Tana Reb Nehemiah is saying his opinion according to the one that holds that the remnant of the blood of a chatas that needs to be poured on the foundation, if it's not poured, then it's ma'akiv. Therefore, because this is an essential part of the sacrifice, if it's done outside the temple, then that would be considered bringing a sacrifice outside the temple. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question on Rabbi Yochanan. His interpretation of Rabbi Nehemiah isn't going to fit with a conversation Rabbi Nehemiah has with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Nehemiah says that the remnant of the blood that's brought outside is going to be, the person that offers it outside is going to be chayiv kares, right? He brought a sacrifice outside. Amalei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, those are just leftovers of the mitzvah. That's not significant. Shir mitzvah is an expression that it's not essential. But why are you saying that you're chayiv if you offer that outside? That's not part of the sacrifice. Sacrifice was already brought before that blood was poured on the altar. Sprinkling, yes, but this is the remnant of the blood.
But doesn't the sprinkling include?
Sprinkling concludes. Now, so what do you say? It's already done. Amalai, Rabbi Nehemiah says back to Rabbi Akiva, well, what about the fats and the limbs? The sprinkling concluded it, and you still have to offer up the fats and limbs on the altar. And guess what? Even though you've already finished the sacrifice with the sprinkling of the blood, but there's still other parts that you do afterwards. And if you would do those parts outside, your person would be chayiv kares. Same thing with the remnant of the blood. Amar Loi, Rabbi Akiva says back, Loi, you're telling me isn't a good proof. Those are considered the beginning of the Avodah. That's not considered the end of the Avodah. That's the end of the service. Okay, now. That's the conversation. Yeah, you follow? That's the conversation between Reb Nehemiah and Rabbi Akiva regarding the remnant of the blood. Rabbi Yochanan, his explanation for this was that the shirayim is ma'akiv, v'misa, and if you'll explain Rabbi Nehemiah's opinion the way Rabbi Yochanan wanted to explain it, that the shirayim, the remnant of the blood, is ma'akiv, is essential, and if you don't pour it on the foundation of the altar, on the side, the sacrifice is invalid. V'misa, if you're going to accept that opinion, why doesn't Rabbi Nehemiah at this point respond back to Rabbi Akiva? What are you telling me that shiari mitzvah? That's not shiari mitzvah. That if you leave that out, the whole sacrifice is invalid. Why didn't he say that? Where it says, "Ooh, strong question. It's yufta." Okay, we're refuted. Rabbi Akiva's refuted. Okay, now the Gemara says, actually, we have an answer to that. Yeah. Ravada Barava he explains that the machlekes is only by the blood of the sacrifices that was brought inside the sanctuary. Special sacrifices, unique sacrifices. The sacrifices of Yom Kippur, the sacrifice of when the entire congregation does a sin, when the Kohen Gadol does a sin. Those are special sacrifices that the blood was brought inside the sanctuary. And then, over there, everything is ma'akiv. Over there, it's much more strict. Aval b'shirayim mechitzainim. But if it's a regular chatas, the regular female sheep, that any person that does a sin, he took onions out of his Israeli salad on Shabbos because he didn't want it. He has to bring a chatas, right? So every regular sin, he has to bring a chatas. The remnant of the blood over there is not ma'akiv. So if that's the case, so Kikam Reb Nechemia can explain that what Reb Nechemia is saying, Shirayim Apnimim. We're talking about the inner ones, and therefore Reb Nechemia holds that the sacrifices that the blood was brought inside, those are special sacrifices, and over there it is makiv. Kitanyahi, that brisa where Reb Nechemia doesn't finish arguing with Rabbi Akiva, is b'shiraim chitzainim. It was talking about the outer ones. Rabbi Akiva layada ma'ika amar Reb Nechemia, who saw Reb Nechemia shiraim chitzainim amar, kamahad le'shiraim chitzainim, Reb Nechemia. Okay, kamahad le'shiraim chitzainim. Let's skip that. Let's skip the parentheses. Yihachi, Umar says, Neimale ki amri ana b'pnimim. So then why doesn't Rabbi Nechemia just tell Rabbi Akiva that they were arguing about something that he wasn't discussing? Why doesn't he just tell him, I'm not talking about Shirayim Chitzainim, I'm talking about Shirayim Chitzinim, Shirayim Pnimim. Ela l'dvar of Rabbi Akiva Kamar. Rabbi Nechemia actually holds that the Shirayim Apnimim is Ma'akiv. The remnant of those sacrifices, remnant of the blood of the inner sacrifice is actually Ma'akiv. But he was answering Rabbi Akiva, who holds that it's not Ma'akiv. So therefore, he wasn't able to say, what do you mean it's not essential? I hold it is essential. He wasn't able to say that. So he was trying to answer him back just from the fats. The fats are brought on the altar, even though it's after the sprinkling of the blood. So too the remnant of the blood should also be. But Rabbi Akiva didn't hold of what his real reasoning was. He was trying to base his argument on what Rabbi Akiva did hold. And that's why he didn't answer back. Okay. We're on the Mishnah on bottom of Kuf Yud Aleph, 111, the Mishnah. HaMoilek Asa'if B'fnim. V'hela B'chotz is Chayiv. It's actually a very easy Mishnah, but the terminology that it uses, you know how sometimes, like, such a simple concept, but the terminology is so complex that it just mixes you up. That's what's going to happen here. It's very simple, but the terms that it's going to use, the phrases that it's going to use, is going to be, you have to think twice. Like, is that what that meant? Malika is the way the birds are slaughtered with the fingernail. That's how it's done in the Beis Hamikdash. Outside the Beis Hamikdash, birds are killed with shchita, with a knife. Now, if someone offers a sacrifice outside the Beis Hamikdash, so when would it be considered a sacrifice? If it's a bird, if it would be in the Beis Hamikdash, it would be with malika. Now that it's outside the Beis Hamikdash, it needs to be with shchita. But let's say it started off in the Beis Hamikdash, and then you took the bird outside. In such a case, malika would also be considered. It would be chayav for offering the sacrifice out. In other words, it would be considered a kosher sacrifice because the malika was done in the right place, and now you offered it outside. The person would be liable for offering that sacrifice outside. But if it would have been malika outside the temple, and then he offers it up, so he'd be offering up an invalid sacrifice.
Okay, so he was on top of the Rama Gedola doing malika, and then he decided not to
Runs
finish
out.
it, and he went down.
Yeah.
Kind of dumb. Or is this purely hypothetical?
That I don't know. No, we can, and the AI will make a story and we'll show what happened.
Where would he be up on the ledge?
It doesn't. Officially,
That's what
it would be on the ledge, but it doesn't matter for the halacha. where he was. Once he's in the courtyard, the malika would be satisfactory.
Like right here.
Yeah, the other side though.
Oh, right on the east, southeast. Yeah.
So Hamelika Saif Bifnim, if someone does malika on a bird inside the Azara, and he offers it up outside, then he's going to be chayiv because the malika was done in the Azara. Okay. However, Malik Bachutz Ve'ala Bachutz is going to be pater. If he does malika outside and he offers it outside, it's going to be pater. There's no such thing as malika outside, and if there is, it's just a regular nevela. It's not even considered a sacrifice. It's considered nothing. Let's say the opposite. Someone slaughters a sacrifice inside the temple, it's on a bird inside the temple. Now, there's no slaughtering of birds in the temple. There's only malika. So he already invalidated it. Now, Ve'ala Bachutz, and then he takes it outside, he's going to be pater because it was already pasul. We don't say that offering a pasul sacrifice is a violation. Excuse me. Shochat bachutz, ve'hala bachutz, that's going to be chayiv. If he slaughters it outside and he offers it outside, he's going to be chayiv not only on the shechita but also on the offering it, because that was considered a valid sacrifice for outside the temple. That was valid. Nimtza, fine. Derech hechsheri b'fnim, the way it's kosher inside, keturei bachutz, becomes an exemption if he does it outside. Derech hechsher bachutz, the way that it's kosher outside, keturei b'fnim, is an exemption if he does it inside. I'm just going to explain what exactly that means, but basically, malika has to be in the right place and shechita has to be in the right place. Reb Shimon says, Kol shachayavin alav bachutz, anything that you'd be chayiv if you did it outside, if you offered it outside. Chayavin al kiyetzi by b'fnim. You'd also be chayiv if it was done the same way inside. Shehela bachutz, b'fnim shehela bachutz. You'd be chayiv if you did it inside, but then you offered it outside. Okay. Except for shechting a bird inside and you offered it outside. So Reb Shimon is a little confusing because it looks like he was going to argue on the Tanakama and say that you just said that you're going to be exempt when you do it outside if it wasn't kosher. And then he says no. If it would be chayiv outside, then you also be chayiv if you did it inside that you brought it outside, which sounds like shechita that was done inside. You'd be chayiv if you did it outside. It says except for that case. Chutz min hashochet b'fnim u'ma'ala b'chutz, except for that case. Even though outside, if you're sheichet outside, you would be chayiv. If you're sheichet outside, you shechted outside, then you offered outside, you'd be chayiv. But when you do that inside, you're going to be pater, which sounds like that was his whole chiddush. And now he says, but except for that case. Anyway, the Gemara will explain it. Okay, there's one problem with the language when we said we find nimtza shechsheri b'fnim, the way it's kosher inside, that's the way it's going to be kosher outside. No, we don't really mean kosher outside. We mean liable outside, not kosher outside. Yeah. This is like the kosher pig, right? You know, like if you do this, then it will be acceptable. It's going to be acceptable to be not kosher, to be invalid. That's what that. We're accepting it to be liable. That's what it means. So the Gemara says, it doesn't mean that it's kosher. It means that you'll be liable. Well, it says, yeah. That's what it meant. Change the language. Just a little white out here, there. It means liable. That's the Reb Shimon Aimer. Let's go to Reb Shimon. You have to bear with me with this. The main point you'll understand, even though the back and forth of this Gemara is it's hard without a picture and a thing. Picture? You want a picture? Well, we're doing a comparison here of something that's outside, that's performed outside, like shechita is performed outside, and then offer it up outside, so that would be liable. But if you do the shechita inside, and then you offer it up outside, you're not liable. But if you did the malika inside and you offer it outside, then you will be liable. If you did the malika outside and you offer it outside, then you're not liable. So we're gonna. And Reb Shimon says, "Oh, it's all the same except for one case." And then we're trying to figure out what he's referring to when it's all the same. So, Ahechakai, what is Reb Shimon referring to? What is Reb Shimon arguing on? If you want to say he's arguing on the first part of the Mishnah, where we said, it says that if someone does malika inside the temple, and then he takes the bird outside, he runs out of the temple, got a phone call, and he was looking for a tissue. He runs outside the temple and he puts it on the altar there. So he's going to be chayiv. Malach b'chutz ve'ela b'chutz is pater. But if he does malika outside the temple, then he's going to be pater. B'amalei Reb Shimon says, ki echid b'fnim chayiv, just like malika inside is chayiv. So, ki echid b'fnim chayiv b'chutz, just like inside is echid b'fnim chayiv. So then, b'chutz nami mechayev. Then outside you'll also be chayev. Just like inside, if you did the malika inside, and you offer it up outside, you'd be chayev. So too, if you do the malika outside, you'd be chayev. The problem is,
you're saying that there was a point where, let's assume this is the Mishkan, that they had the Mishkan, and then they had all these bummers right around the Mishkan.
no, in the Mishkan, no.
So what are they? Hello. Where are they bringing it up outside?
So we're not talking about now in the desert. There were no.
Okay, let's go fast.
We're talking in Yerushalayim, and there was already after the Beis Hamikdash was built.
Right.
And you're not allowed to have a bama.
Right.
Because you already came to El Manucha Vel Anachla. You're already in the place of this is prohibited. So the person is inside the temple. He does half the service there. He does the malika. He takes the bird outside and he burns it on either it's machlekes if it has to be an actual altar outside or even if it's on the ground outside on a rock. He burns it over there. It's an absolute prohibition to offer a sacrifice outside the temple. And the question is, was this valid enough that he's violated that prohibition? That's what we're asking. That's what we're asking. What we're saying is maybe what he means to say is that just like malika inside is liable, so to malika outside should be liable. The problem is kol shechayavan alav b'chutz. Reb Shimon said anything that you're chayav outside. Shimon's expression was, then you're chayav also inside. This is the opposite. This is kol shechayavan b'fnim mibayle. Anything that you chayav inside, you'd be chayav outside. So you got it wrong. Ella will have to change the case.
I think in the whole ball that outside,
He's arguing, right?
but isn't that like a Mishnah?
Reb Shimon is in the Mishnah. He's the other opinion in the Mishnah, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Right. He wrote the book. No. He didn't write the book, but he's in the Mishnah. He's the other opinion in the Mishnah. Ella, so rather we're going to have to change the case. The same way that outside you're not chayiv if you do malika outside and then you offer it up. So too, if you do it inside malika and you take it outside, you're also not going to be chayiv. That's probably what Reb Shimon meant. You'll be exempt. The Gemara says, no. It should have said anything that you're not chayiv outside, you're not chayiv inside. And you said anything that you're chayiv outside. So we still don't have the case. We have to go to the next case. This may be what Reb Shimon is referring to. We're try to look over here. We're holding a line. If you have the wide lines in the Gemara, so we're down about 6 lines down, 5 lines down. It's the beginning of a line. 6 lines down. Very good.
How fun.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
The Seifa says that if someone shechs a bird outside, he shechs a bird inside the temple and he takes it outside, it's going to be exempt. Shachat bachutz, ve'ela bachutz is chayiv. But if he shechs it outside and he offers it up outside, then he's going to be chayiv, because that was valid for outside. Amar le Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says to the Tanakama, ki echi de bifnim le mechayiv, just like you're not chayiv if you do it inside. Bachutz nami le lechayiv. Outside you also shouldn't be chayiv per shchita. Says 1 second. I call shein chayavin. We said anything that you're not chayiv inside, you're not chayiv outside. Kol shein chayavin mibaylet. So anything that you're not chayiv. We said exactly the opposite. Reb Shimon says anything that you are chayiv. Yeah. So rather, talking about shechadayf b'fnim is pater, but shechadayf b'chutz is going to be chayiv. Reb Shimon says same way that inside you're not chayiv outside. So okay, we're going to have to say the other way. El ki hechid b'chutz mechayiv b'fnim nami mechayiv. Ah, perfect. We just figured it out. Anything that outside you're chayiv, which is sheichet, if you slaughter it outside, then you're chayiv. So too, if you slaughter it inside, you're chayiv. Hakatani. The problem is, Reb Shimon then says chutz min sheichet b'fnim v'amalei b'chutz, except for you slaughter it inside and offer it outside, that you're going to be pater. So the case that Reb Shimon is arguing, Reb Shimon said the one case that we found that Reb Shimon would be arguing with the Tanakama, Reb Shimon says that's an exception to the rule, and I hold like the Tanakama. So there's no machlekes. The whole thing was just unnecessary. Amar Ziri says, Shchitas behema balayla k'binayu. Talking about someone that slaughters an animal at night. That's the difference between Reb Shimon and the Tanakama. B'achi kamar, and he means to say like this: Someone slaughters an animal inside the temple at night. That was not allowed. And then he goes and he takes it outside. Something else is not allowed. So, but since it was already invalid because the slaughtering was done by night, so we say he's pater. Shachat bachutz balayla vehela bachutz is chayiv. Let's say he slaughters it outside by night, and then he offers it up. He's going to be chayiv, because when you sacrifice is outside the temple, there's no rules of day or night. We're not going to say, oh, you didn't do it exactly like it's done in the temple, so you'll be exempt. No, if you brought it outside the temple, you're going to be chayiv. If it was brought in the temple, then that would be invalid. And if you offer it up outside, you're going to be pater. But if you slaughtered it outside the temple, even if it's at night, you're going to be chayiv. Reb Shimon Aimer, kol shechayav al b'chutz, chayiv al ketzbei b'fnim v'hela b'chutz. Chutz min ha'shechrei b'fnim v'hela b'chutz. However, Reb Shimon says that no, the case the case that he's arguing is that if someone slaughters the animal inside the temple, and he slaughters it by night in the temple, which is invalid, and then you offer it up outside, you'll also be chayiv. You'll also be chayiv. Since outside the temple you'll be chayiv, you're also chayiv inside the temple. The only thing that you won't be chayiv for is if you slaughter a bird inside the temple and you offer it up outside the temple. Over there you're going to be exempt. But a regular animal that's slaughtered by night in the temple, you'd be chayiv if you offer it outside the temple. Rava gives another pshat in the machlekes. Kabbalah b'kli chalak binayu. If the blood was received in a mundane vessel, vachi kamar, and this is what the machlekes is. The Tanakhama say we're going to have to say like this. We have to add in some words to make this fit. If someone uses a mundane vessel to receive the blood inside the temple, that's not acceptable. And then he brings it outside the temple, he's going to be exempt. He's going to be exempt because that was invalid. But if he uses a mundane vessel outside the temple, then he's going to be chayiv. No, he's going to be chayiv even if he used the mundane vessel inside, because he's chayiv if he uses it outside. So too, if he uses it inside, Reb Shimon has that comparison. Except for the bird that shechted inside, that he's going to be exempt. Okay. What makes the vessel different if it was consecrated? No, if it was consecrated, if it was a vessel that was donated to the temple, it gets on a certain holiness. And the vessel that this person used was not; it was just his regular measuring cup. When he used this regular cup, wasn't consecrated, wasn't a service vessel. Yeah. Maybe at one point they were all anointed, but it means consecrated. The Tanya Avud the Shmuel bar of Yitzchak. Wow, the Avua the Shmuel bar of Yitzchak. This is the father of Shmuel, the son of Yitzchak. Whoa, how'd that happen? Why don't we just say Rav Yitzchak? Maybe the pshat is like this. Maybe Shmuel's grandfather was Rav Yitzchak, and it's Avua the Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, the father of Shmuel, the son of Rav Yitzchak, not the father of Shmuel, who is the son of Rav Yitzchak. That Shmuel is the son of Rav Yitzchak. Yeah, the Rav Naftali, is that possible? Avua the Shmuel is his name, and he's the son of Rav Yitzchak. Why is he called Avua the Shmuel? Maybe he had a son of Shmuel. I don't know. Maybe not. He's just called Avua the Shmuel. But I'm not sure. Here it says Shmuel. I'm just wondering. Avud Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. The father of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak would be Rav Yitzchak.
Shmuel, father
Of what? Of the names? Oh, they have a note on the names. Very good. 18. It's strange that the Gemara should call the Samar the father of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak rather than just simply Rav Yitzchak. It cannot mean that he was the father of Shmuel, who was himself the son of Rav Yitzchak. For the well-known Avud the Shmuel, father of Shmuel, was named Abba bar Abba. See, the Mechbetzes amends our Gemara and reads Avud the Shmuel, the father of Rav Shmuel. However, we find the Brisa being quoted by the father of Shmuel bar Yitzchak in Eruvin as well. Possibly the reason this Rav Yitzchak is identified as the father of Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak is because Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak was well known. He is mentioned throughout the Talmud. See, for example, 53b. His father Rav Yitzchak was not. The sages therefore referred to him as the father of Shmuel bar Yitzchak, father of Rav Abuvram. Okay. Basically, they say, don't worry about it.
But this is all the famous Shmuel.
No, what they want to say is that this is Shmuel, who's the son of Rav Yitzchak, and we're actually talking about Rav Yitzchak himself, but because he wasn't so well known, so we're just going to call him Avua the Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. That's how they want to interpret it. Okay, so this Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says this Rav Yitzchak says if someone does malika inside, and then he offers it outside his chayev. Malak bachutz v'hala bachutz is butter. Reb Shimon mechayev. Reb Shimon said that he's going to be chayev on malika bachutz. Okay, so he taught that what Reb Shimon is referring to is that you chayev for malika bachutz. Okay, and if that's the case, then we can say like this: Reb Shimon hasam kai. Reb Shimon was referring to that Mishnah that malak bachutz is going to be chayev. The way we're going to read the Mishnah will be like this. Anything that you chayav inside and you offer it up outside is chayav. The same thing will apply if you did it outside and you offer it up outside. You'll also be chayav. So therefore, malika is outside. It's going to be chayav. So we're going to have to amend the Mishnah because we said anything that you chayav outside, you're also going to be chayav inside. Really, what Avua the Shmuel was the way he's learning it is that anything that you chayiv inside and you offered it outside, you'll also be chayiv if you did it outside, which is malika. If you did it inside, you'd be chayiv. If you offered it outside, so too, if you do the malika outside, you'll also be chayiv. Nothing else. Okay. Let's go for it. Chata shekibel dam b'kaisei echad. You have a chatas that you used 1 cup to receive the blood. We're going to make a difference here between 1 cup or 2 cups. Nasan bachutz, v'chaz of a nasan b'fnim. Let's say he takes the blood outside, runs outside, and he sprinkles the blood outside. Violation, right? You're not allowed to do that. Then he comes back inside and he sprinkles the blood. Or b'fnim, v'chaz of a nasan bachutz. He sprinkles the blood inside, and then he runs outside and he sprinkles the blood. So in those cases, he's going to be chayiv on sprinkling the blood outside. Shekulai roi lifnim, because all of that blood was eligible to go inside. Okay, that's because it was in 1 cup, and that the sprinkling was still going on. Kibbul dam b'shtei kaises. Let's say he used 2 cups. V'nasan shneim b'fnim. He's pater. That's interesting. That's not. He's exempt because he didn't do any violation, right? That wasn't the point. The point is that there's going to be other things here. He's going to be chayiv. So we said 1 case where he's pater, but that's not the point. Shnei bachutz. If he did both of them outside, then he's going to be chayiv. 1 chatas if he does them behelam echad, and 1 forgetting, 2 chatas if he does them together. If he does them separate, forget. Echad b'fnim v'echad bachutz. Pater. If he does the first cup inside, so then the second cup is insignificant because the first cup was the one that was sprinkled, and the second cup was just shirayim, and shirayim outside doesn't do anything. That's what was Reb Nechemia or something. No, 3 lug was wine and water, never just sprinkling blood. No, it's a small drop. There's nothing. What happens the opposite? Echad b'chutz ve'echad b'fnim. If you first do the cup outside and then the other one inside, chayav al achitzin, you're going to be chayav because you sprinkled the blood outside. Va'apnimi mechaper. But actually, this sacrifice is still going to be eligible because he has one of his cups was still eligible to sprinkle inside, which he did. He did sprinkle inside. And so it's an interesting case where the sacrifice is valid, and he's chayav for offering it outside because of the 2 cups. What could this be comparable to? If someone designates a chatas and then he loses it, so he designates another one. And then he finds the first one. And now he has 2. So shachat shteim b'fnim, if he shechs them both inside his pater. Shteim b'chutz, if he shechs them both outside, then he's chayiv. Because one of them, he's chayiv on both of them. Achas b'fnim, achas b'chutz. But let's say he does 1 inside, 1 outside, then he's going to be pater because the second sacrifice was not really a sacrifice. The rule is that by a chatas, if you have an extra sacrifice, it has to be put to death. This was an ineligible sacrifice to be slaughtered. So it's not considered that it's valid enough to make him liable for outside. However, achas b'chutz, achas b'fnim. Let's say he did it the opposite. He did the first one outside, and the second one he did inside. So this is similar to our case, where he's chayiv al achitzin, he's chayiv for offering a sacrifice outside the temple. But nevertheless, the one that he did inside is actually an atonement for him. The same way that sprinkling the blood of the 2 chatas, that exempts, that removes the law of me'ilah from the flesh. So too, when the 2 sacrifices were slaughtered inside, so when the blood of one of them was sprinkled, there's no more me'ilah on the second one as well. The me'ilah that's on the sacrifice before the blood sprinkled, that goes off when these 2 sacrifices were sprinkled, and one of the blood was, if 2 sacrifices were slaughtered and one of the blood was sprinkled, there's no me'ilah on both of them. Okay. Even though the second one is absolutely invalid, it wasn't supposed to be slaughtered, but there's no me'ilah on that. I guess we'll have to leave it here. We're on top of Kufya base, right on the top.
Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Have a good day.
And Kol Tov.
Okay. So, that's luck.